You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. It is November 13th, 2023, and this is Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we bring you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. And today we're just going to have a topic show where we're with the panel, and so we're going to talk a little bit about this new group called the No Labels Party, which is kind of exciting because every time there's somebody's making an effort to break the duopoly, it's always a little bit exciting, and how the duopoly feels threatened about that. And we're also going to talk a little bit about an update on the Israel-Palestine conflict, and maybe a little bit of discussion of proportionality, because we hear that term thrown out a lot. And finally, we'll have our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, where we'll kind of surprise you with some ridiculous thing some politician or celebrity has said or done in the media. But before we get into any of that, let me introduce you to our panel. In our lower right-hand corner today, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. In our lower right-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. My name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today.
That was two lower rights.
That's why I was just going to say that. I didn't want to point that
out. I guess I'm giving up the balance on the show.
Obviously, Jason.
We're just shifted to the right here.
Yeah, Jason can't even recognize left side from right side. He can't say left. He hates left. He hates.
Yeah, well, the way the left is today, I just as soon forget about it.
But I don't know why you can say right after what we see on the at least the Republican right. And
that's true. It does feel like clown world versus maybe undesirable versus just absolute clown world.
Yeah. So maybe it should be in the middle. We have Tim, and in the middle we have Leon. That could be a workaround.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Clown world versus the parables, I guess, or something. I guess, I don't know.
Well, you kind of threw me off by the positioning being switched today. I'm used to seeing Leon in the left, but I do feel like he actually belongs a little more to the right. Anyway, let's get into our show. Where we're not going to have time to talk about any of this stuff. So maybe if we could get our wonderful invisible hand, James Just, if you could pull up the visual. We wanted to talk about the No Labels Party today. So this is kind of a thing that I just started hearing about. I'm not quite sure how long they've been at this, but they've just started to make some noise because not so much because I've heard them, but I've heard the two parties whining about them, and mainly the Democrat Party. So the No Labels Party is essentially this movement where they kind of want to get away from the division, the polarization that's happening, and so they're trying to figure out a way to sort of get to the middle, kind of like what Tim was just trying to do there a second ago. And so I'm not sure if that's the best way to think about things, this thing in the middle, versus left right. But the bottom line is that's kind of the way they're framing things, and they don't like this idea of either having to be one side or the other of this duopoly of Republicans and Democrats. But where I've heard most about these guys recently is the Democrats have been kind of, starting to get alarmed. Nancy Pelosi, here's an article from CBS News that says the No Labels is perilous to our democracy and a threat to Biden. So I think that's the real issue. It's not really a threat to our democracy. It's more like a threat to their leader, which, it's funny
when a politician says a threat to democracy, it means it's a threat to their power. That's all I mean. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of your freedom to choose them. That's what they're worried about. Is that you
exactly.
lose the freedom to choose them? But anyways, and here's another article too from NPR that sort of says the same thing. Democrats sound the alarm over No Labels third-party bid. And one of the issues that you might think, well, why are the Democrats more concerned about this than the Republicans? And a reason that just popped up is that Senator Joe Manchin of, I believe it's West Virginia, recently said.
Yes, he is. It's West Virginia. Yes.
Yeah, and he said he's been kind of a little bit of a road bump or a speed bump for Democrats recently in the Senate, where he hasn't quite gone along on a lot of the Green New Deal stuff. He's sort of been an impediment to some of this stuff because he wants to see, he comes from a coal state, so his constituents aren't really on board with a lot of that stuff, and so he's been kind of a little bit not in harmony with a lot of the Democrats, I guess, and some of the things they'd like to do. Well, he recently said that he was going to step down and he's not going to run for re-election in 2024. But what that might mean is that he said he's kind of investigating what his other options are. And so some people are speculating that he might wind up being the candidate for this No Labels party. And so somebody who maybe has some actual credibility and who's gotten a lot of, I guess, he's gotten a lot of free press in his being a sort of a thorn in the side of Democrats over the past Biden administration. So what do you guys think about this? This seems, is this positive and negative? Joe Manchin does seem like an improvement over Biden. If that worst came to worst, and he won. What do you guys think?
Anybody would be an improvement over Biden, quite frankly. But what is really disturbing about all of this is that we live in a representative republic where we all have the right to choose, supposedly, and all the right to vote to how we think about our potential leaders. And yet the first thing comes out of the mouth of people like Nancy Pelosi and probably Joe Biden, I guess at some point in time will probably be singing the same tune, is this new party, the new No Labels party, is somehow a threat to our democracy. Why? So is there some part of the Constitution that I missed that said only the Democrats and the Republicans are the only two parties that can exist here in the United States, and anybody that come along is some threat to democracy? This is insanity gone amok. Because now anything that's a threat to the establishment is considered a threat to democracy. And actually, there are some people who actually believe this. So it's no longer that we are free to choose our leaders. We are only free to choose certain leaders. And that is so anti-democratic, it's unbelievable. And yet we have people like Nancy Pelosi, a former Speaker of the House, by the way, telling us it's a threat to democracy to have a third party or maybe a fourth party where we have the Libertarians out there, and then there's the independent John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It looked like he's going to run as an independent. So I guess all of these people who are not part of the Republican-Democrat duopoly, I guess all of these people are threats to democracy. And this is absurd and insane.
Yeah. How soon before we become just a threat to democracy, before suddenly we're the disinformation terrorists and they're locking us all up?
There you go. Exactly. Yes.
Don't you think they're also calling the Democrats are also calling the Republicans threats to democracy as well? Haven't I heard that too regarding Trump, or people like to vote for Trump? Also threats.
Yeah, and that. Yes.
So there's the only non-threat to democracy is a Democrat, obviously. Oh, well, maybe it's in the name. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, or if you happen to be a rhino Republican who just happens to agree with the Democrats most of the time, then you're not really a threat to democracy. Exactly. If you're the type of guy who'd be a Republican representative on MSNBC, then you're not really the threat to democracy. It's just all the other guys.
Yeah. You're one of the ones that might be required if they need a 2/3 majority or something. Yeah. But I think the Republicans have had us libertarians as thorns in their side for so long that when something like this comes up, it's like it's high time and good that the Democrats have a libertarian style, kind of like the Democrats, I guess, a little left, but not exactly a Democrat. So, yeah, what the heck? The funny thing of it all is The funny thing of it all, what happens if Manchin becomes their candidate? He wins the election, and now all the Democrats and all the Republicans have a president that is not part of their party, but isn't gonna is it not still capable, the government, the federal government, of running business as usual? Because you still got to get the majority, and they've got to, you've still got to run bills through the House and the Senate and this, that, and the other thing, and you still have a guy who is commander in chief and has all his little powers that he has. So I don't see where it makes a big difference, other than the fact that they aren't of the same party, so supposedly they can't toe the exact line that everybody else wants. But still, I mean, if their ideas are so great and wonderful that they're good for the world, then maybe they could just convince this third party president to vote for it and not veto it.
But you see, this is just the point, though. You raise the point about how the Democrats, they define certain elements of the Republican Party as threats to democracy. Now look at one of the things that's been beaten around quite a lot, Tim, about your point, is this, the extremist MAGA Republicans. Now what the hell is a MAGA Republican? A Trump supporter? That's what a MAGA Republican is. And what it is, a Trump support that is so anti-democratic. I mean, I know Trump says some idiotic things at times. He really does.
Yeah.
But he's still constrained by the power. If he becomes president again, he's still constrained by the power of the presidency. That's what he's constrained by, which is laid out in our Constitution. But I know he have said some idiotic things like, like he could do this and he can do that. Obviously he has. But the MAGA Republicans, these MAGA Republicans, these are the new extremists. They want to do this and they want to do that. They want to have an insurrection again. But they never hear those same words being characterized as when people went and take over the speaker. When Kevin McCarthy was Speaker of the House, some people stormed the Capitol. They took over his office. Nobody called those people or whatever. I don't even know what the issue was. Whatever the issue was, nobody called them extremists. We had a few protesters. They probably said mostly peaceful. I didn't hear that, but probably somebody said it. But you see, this is that. Not only that we have these so-called threats to the threats to democracy, we also have the hypocrisy in the media that is fomenting this nonsense. This is the problem.
I was waiting for that H word. I'm glad you out of my mouth.
Yeah, you're breaking up there a little bit, Tim, but we got the H word part of it.
Yeah, I said I'm glad Leon used the H word because he took it out.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because we just talked about this on the last show that we did, I think, where Rashida Tlaib also had sort of riled up a group of Palestinian protesters on the war in Israel to raid some of the Capitol buildings and essentially forcibly, occupy. And they had to be, a lot of them had to be taken out by police. But,
right.
But of course, that wasn't an insurrection.
No, it was not. Of course,
insurrection. If you were a MAGA supporter, then it's an insurrection.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but the funny thing too was with all this, I remember before the whole January 6th thing, this was something where all the violence was coming from the left, the political left.
Yes.
I mean, they were the ones who were essentially lighting things on fire, attacking the police, burning police cars in the streets, and the Democrats called it a summer of love, not an insurrection. So it's it's kind of a strange vision that they have as far as what's a threat to democracy and what isn't.
The problem is. The problem goes beyond the names of threat to democracy and the names of MAGA Republicans and all that kind of stuff and things like that. The problem goes beyond that, is that some of this threats to democracy and all these labels that they are now, disseminating against certain sectors of society, they are leading to two things. One is the tolerance of violence by certain sectors of our society, and the second thing is selective prosecutions. which is a dangerous path that we are taking with this dissemination of information, disinformation and misinformation that we are now seeing. And you don't see anybody. You just spoke about a very good example. Nobody talk about insurrection when we had Kevin McCarthy's office was taken over, when the pro-Palestinian group went into the capital and they were making their noise and shouting and that kind of stuff, they were escorted out. I think only one person was arrested or two were arrested, whatever. Nobody would talk about insurrection then. Okay, nobody's talking about persecuting these people. Maybe a little slap on the wrist or something like that. But look at what happened to the January 6th folks. Yeah. So this is a real problem. So these threats to democracies are now being weaponized in law and in law enforcement. And this is a potential problem.
Yeah. Hey, I think the biggest threat to democracy is the growth of government. You see government
totally
growing,
agree.
That's the biggest threat to not just democracy. I mean, we say democracy a lot of times, and that's sort of shorthand for freedom. But what we're really talking about is liberty and freedom, not democracy is kind of a poor a poor substitute for that. So, but anyways, there in talking a little bit about the Rashida Tlaib and the Israel-Palestine thing, that is a good segue to going over to an update on what's happening over there in the Middle East right now. And so, James, maybe if I could get our invisible hand to show us a little bit about what's going on there. Here's an article from Al Jazeera. So if you recall, this whole thing started on October 7th when a band of, I think, over 1,000 Hamas fighters went into Israel and killed, gosh, I'm not sure what the total count is at this point, but it's well
somewhere
over
between 1,400 and 1,500 Israelis.
Okay. Yeah. So, and it took a while for them to come up with those numbers too, because it was so brutal, and they were going house to house in places and just killing civilians. They're also killing soldiers too and police. But I mean, as far as I understand, a lot of these were civilians. And the worst was this concert. And we talked about that in the show. We showed some pictures before, but the idea that they just went in and massacred people who were just out enjoying music at a concert. I can't imagine anything more barbaric or brutal than that. But anyways, that's what started all this. And then Israel has responded, and the response, because Hamas went and they kidnapped some Israelis, they took them back into Gaza, and essentially going into tunnels, Tim, do you have something to say?
I think you forgot an adjective. That these weren't just regular civilians; these were unarmed civilians, unarmed by the government.
Yeah. And so like the people at the concert and stuff, most of those people were not armed. My understanding is, though, a lot of Israeli households do own weapons. A lot of that is because I believe that they're all expected to go through service in that country. So I think but when you're being attacked by people with who have been trained with automatic weapons coming in and surprising you when you're just asleep with your family, that's absolutely crazy. But anyways, so this was just a massacre of these people. And I mean, a video has come out since showing how they literally tortured a lot of these people and made GoPro videos and sent it out. It's not even like the Nazis where they hid the stuff that they did to Jews from the world. Hamas is advertising it. They're happy, they're proud. But anyways, that's what started all this out. And then so when they took the several hundred hostages back with them and went back to hide in Gaza, now that has prompted Israel to come back and invade Gaza so that they can get at the Hamas terrorists who came. And keep in mind, Hamas is literally the political leadership too of the Palestinians there. So it's all fairly complicated.
In Gaza only. Yes, you're right. Yes.
Yeah. And so this is real, terrible situation. But in order to get at these but I mean, imagine if Nancy Pelosi, was lobbing bombs and then she went and hid behind your house and said, "Ha, you can't get me," using you as a human shield. Well, that's essentially what Hamas is doing, right? They're literally using the Palestinian people who they're supposed to represent as human shields. So, Israel, and the only way to get to them is, that there's going to be collateral damage as they try to get to them. And that's what's occurring. And there are, many thousands more Palestinians dying because of both the bombing that's occurring in Palestine and in the Gaza Strip, rather, and the also in terms of the blockading of resources going to Palestine so that people can just have enough water and medical supplies to get by and stuff. So, and this is prompting an issue that's come up of proportionality. And so we're hearing this a lot. Well, if you look here at this, maybe we could bring back the Al Jazeera article again, because this is what kind of makes the point. They're saying more than 10,000 Palestinians killed in Israeli attacks on Gaza. And of course, James, maybe you could get that article up again real quick. And so, this is kind of gives you a sense of the numbers, right? More than 10,000. So clearly we're talking like 5 to 1 at this point, if you're just keeping track of numbers. And, of course, Al Jazeera is only talking about the Palestinian deaths at this point, because, they seem to be a little biased on the whole thing. But if we look too at the history of this, Statista has a thing that goes up to about 2020. And so, they show Israeli deaths versus Palestinian deaths in a lot of this conflict. And of course, you see there's a lot more Palestinian deaths than there are Israeli deaths. I'm not quite sure how they
those deaths and injuries. The deaths are in black. The injuries are in red.
Yeah. And so I'm not quite sure how they characterize all these, if it's collateral or not. And I'm sure that's probably what it is in many cases with the Palestinian injuries. But you can see here that there is this disproportionality, apparently. So this is the question I kind of had for you guys, and maybe for us to consider on the show a little bit. But what, how should we think about proportionality with respect to war and when somebody attacks somebody else? Is this something that is important, and should we take this into consideration when these things are occurring? And so let me kick this to you guys.
I'll start for a change. Sure. You want to respond to attacks with overwhelming proportionality. If you're going to go to war, or if you're going to defend yourself, you don't. For example, you don't want to pussyfoot around. You want to utilize if you can, whatever overwhelming force that you have at your disposal. So, for example, attack upon your person. So,
well, Tim, when you started off, you said overwhelming proportionality, and I think you mean overwhelming disproportionality. Right?
Yeah, correct. No, I did not mean the proportionality is so proportional and so equal that it's just overwhelming how equal it is. I mean, it's not like this. It's like this. It's so equal. No, I didn't mean it that way. I meant, if somebody's attacking you at this level, you want to respond at this level or that level way up there if possible, because you
kind of like the. Well, it almost sounds like what you're saying is the Powell doctrine, or what's his name? That other guy used to say back then. I can't remember his name, but that Bush administration guy, where he Rumsfeld, shock and awe is what they called it. Rumsfeld, yeah, they called it shock and awe. So the idea was that it's specifically not proportional. But go ahead, Tim. Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah. So, but in a situation like this, where your target, so here's what I'm saying. Where's the proportionality in Israel's attack against Hamas? I heard that was their target, not the Palestinians. Am I wrong? Did Israel not say that they were going after Hamas and wanted to destroy Hamas? Or did they say they want to destroy Palestine? Which one was it? Leon?
Yeah. Go ahead, Leon, if you know.
Well, this word proportionality is a nonsensical word, okay? Quite frankly, okay? And this is why I'm saying that. The first rule of war, if you're going to start a war, which is what Hamas and the did, if you're going to start a war, your first rule of war is you have to know your enemy. Know thy enemy, right? Who you're dealing with. So if you decide you want to go into Israel and you want to go kill some of the Israeli citizens, okay, fine. That's your right. You want to do that? Go do it. If you want to declare war on Israel, go do it. But don't expect that Israel is going to respond under your rules. Don't expect that. And this is what Hamas is doing, and they have done successfully. They started the war, and then when Israel responds, they get to the whole world to say, oh, we need some proportionality. What the hell does that mean? No, what the hell does that? I don't know what that means. If you're going to attack, go attack. That's your right as a sovereign nation, well, semi-sovereign nation, I should say, that you want to start a war. Fine, you declared war. I have no problem with you declaring war, but know your enemy. And if you know, and they knew Israel was going to respond, and they were going to respond hard. They knew that. So don't come now and start to whine and cry about the outcome of your barbarism. Don't whine and cry about it. It's too late for that.
Well, deal with it now. I don't know who's whining and crying about it, but I doubt that it's Hamas, because Hamas's goal was, because they are so disproportional in power to Israel, their end goal was for Israel to respond with overwhelming superiority and death and destruction upon Palestine. The reason for that is because their end goal is to bring other Muslim nations into the fracas and to join them in, going up against Israel. So you've got the neighboring countries that your desire, if you're Hamas, and this is exactly what they wanted to do, and Israel just went right along and did exactly what Hamas's end result was and goal was, in my opinion, and that was to bring overwhelming superior force against the Palestinians and kill 10,000 or 20 or 30 or 40. They don't care. They want the more the better, because that enrages the neighboring Muslim nations to go against Israel and to invade from the north in whatever direction. Israel's surrounded, so they want them invading from everywhere, and because it's their only chance. I mean, that's the whole thing about
real quick, Tim. Real quick. Well, hold on, Tim. We got to make a break for our public access audience, and so I wanted to let you know, if you're watching on public access, this conversation continues online. Go check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, and just look for Knuckleheads of Liberty. And you can find a lot more shows too that are archived of us talking to interesting people who are trying to fight for liberty around the country and in your region. So check that out and follow the conversation there. Okay, back to the show. What's your finish your thoughts, Tim?
That was it. That this is exactly what Hamas had hoped to achieve, because they have no other alternative. They're not powerful enough to go up against Israel. It was just poke the bear, have the bear respond with overwhelming force, destroy as many people and as much of Gaza as possible, so that everybody else from surrounding nations would go up against Israel, defeat Israel, and then that's victory, if you could. I mean, that was their whole idea. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
No, I don't. No, I don't think you're wrong. But you have people around the world talking about pause and ceasefire. You should have a pause. You should have a ceasefire. You should have. You need. Yeah. You should have this proportionality. All we hearing so much of these things when everybody knew what Hamas was doing. They knew what Hamas was doing. They knew what was going to happen after they did it. Okay. So what is the point of now talking about ceasefire and pause and proportionality? Oh, it's now become a humanitarian crisis and all these sort of things. This is what the whining I'm talking about.
Well, I would submit that if you're Israel and your retaliatory goal is to cut off the head of the snake and take out Hamas and try to leave the Palestinians alone as much as possible, then you're going to try to do more surgical things. You're going to send in troops on the ground and you're going to go hunt down Hamas and you're going to assassinate them or arrest them or whatever. And then, that's a little more proportional. It's like, okay, we were not attacked by the Palestinians, we were attacked by Hamas. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up and retaliate against Hamas, not the Palestinian people. So I would say that would be the argument I would make in response to your question.
Yeah, but proportionality is not a rule of war. That's the point I'm trying to make, though.
No, it's not. You could say that in a personal self-defense situation, proportionality ends when the threat against your life ends. So that's not war. That's not war. We're seeing war here. And you're right. Proportionality ends when you declare victory, when you have achieved victory. You can declare victory, but not achieve it. That's what Biden would do. I declare victory.
Oh yes, man. Oh yes. I declare victory and then yes.
You lost the war.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, it certainly seems like they were looking for a disproportionate response, because that's the whole point, right? If they killed 1,500 civilians, they're hoping, I think, that a whole bunch more than that get killed on their side, just for the effect that they're after, which is, like you're saying, to bring the people in from the other to join the conflict. But I think there is a sort of an elephant in the room, though, in all of this, when we talk about civilians getting killed on both sides, because you think about those 200 concert goers that were just brutalized and murdered. So some of these people didn't even live in Israel; they were just visiting for the concert.
Right.
Like they had this one German woman who, the videos have been out there of her being abducted from this concert, and her body was just mutilated, and she was dragged practically naked through the streets of Gaza while people yelled Allahu Akbar and spat upon her body. So I mean, these are this is like not even somebody who's in the conflict. It's literally just somebody passing by being grabbed and brutalized like this.
Never mind the German accent, huh?
Yeah. In fact, she didn't look very German, actually, but she was from Germany. But anyways, the one of the things that I think there's an elephant in the room here is that this person clearly had no tie at all to this conflict. Whereas if you look at the civilians on the other side, the Palestinians, they actually elected the leaders who are doing this. I mean, Hamas was put into power through an election, and they literally said that their goal was to kill the Jews, to get rid of the Jews from the river to the sea.
It's in their charter. It's in their charter as we speak. It's in their charter.
But I mean, if you're a citizen, but if you're a civilian and you vote for that, if you knowingly vote that's part of the contract of what I'm voting for, are you completely, removed from I guess what it is, the violence, if you are literally, I mean, that's what you're advocating for. It's not like you got fooled. It's not like, hey, I thought I was electing a sweet old man like Joe Biden, and he turned out to be a monster. I mean, these are people who literally said, this is what we plan to do. And isn't there some kind of culpability there?
But was it a balanced election? Do we know that?
What's that?
Oh, it was a while back. I think it was like 2005 or
2006. I think it was. It was
2006.
Israel left Gaza in 2005, and I think Hamas came to power in 2006 or 2007, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Was it? And then they suspended being. Well, I was just going to say, and then they suspended being able to be to have elections to be able to get rid of these guys. So once they were elected, they said, "Okay, you're not going to vote us out." Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that, Tim. Go ahead.
I was just wondering if it was a fair and balanced election.
We had our people, the ones who say don't question
Jimmy
elections.
Carter. I think Jimmy Carter was one of the observers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think
so
too.
You said it was good to go. Jimmy Carter. Oh, okay. Well, okay. Yeah, and again, Hamas was, it's kind of a similar tactic in a way to the Hamas attack, trying to get other people to defeat Israel. Hamas was placed there and supported by Israel as a means of never ever coming up with a negotiated solution to the problem that they have, the two state, one state, or whatever state problem they have. So that again, a strategy. Who knows if the Hamas strategy is going to work against Israel? And surely the Israeli strategy of putting Hamas there so that you will never have a negotiated settlement, according to Netanyahu.
Well, and just to be clear, though, they didn't actually put them there. They simply it was a political move. Yeah, exactly. They supported them. So it means clearly the Israelis government's hands are a little bit dirty in this. But in the end, Palestinians had to vote for it.
Just a little bit.
But what I'm saying, Palestinians had to vote for it, right? I mean, it wasn't like the Israelis actually just installed them like we did with, I believe, the Shah of Iran or something like that. I mean, this was something where they had to elect them. But yeah, they were clearly playing fast and loose with thinking they were somehow gaming the situation. I think it was the same president that's currently there now in Israel.
Netanyahu.
The same Netanyahu, Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. This was around 2019. I mean, not that long ago.
What was 2019?
That's when Netanyahu gave the speech to the parliament there in Israel about supporting Hamas. What a great idea it was to support Hamas. That was when he gave that speech. Now there was prior support, and post speech support, but that was when he gave that speech. And the Israelis, I mean, I just heard a debate between an Israeli guy and a pro-Palestinian guy. And the Israeli guy did not dispute that whole accusation that Israel supported Hamas with money and political push. There goes the cat. And it was... he didn't dispute it. He said that it was a mistake to do that, to support Hamas. That was his conclusion. So this is not even disputed. And people don't
the point, but I think the relevant point is what the point that Jason made, though. Even though it is true, the Israeli hands are quite dirty in this whole support for Hamas and keeping getting Hamas supporting Hamas in the elections. It is true. Okay, their hands are not clean here. But I think Jason is right. The Palestinian people in Gaza voted for them. As a matter of fact, after they were elected, they fought a bloody war with a bloody civil war with Fatah for control of the Gaza. And once they got control of Gaza, they moved Fatah out. Fatah is the party of the guy who's the head of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. Once they kicked Fatah out, then they decided, well, we ain't having no more elections, and we shall rule the Gaza as we damn well please. So yes, the Israeli hands are not clean, but it's the Palestinian people in Gaza who put them there and keep them there. Okay, and they do all sorts of things. So so I am with Jason on this point that there's some culpability of the people that they allow these people to stay in power.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll agree with that too. But here's my one final point about this disproportionality thing. This whole thing, this 10,000 versus 1,500 or what have you. Here's my point. Israel does not need $50 billion from the United States. They don't need $50 from the United States. A country capable of responding to an attack by 5 times the casualty rate is a country that doesn't need our money, period, end of story. a country that has F-16s and better versus powered hang gliders is a country that doesn't need $50 billion or whatever it is. What is 60, 70, 100, a trillion, who knows, who cares? They don't need a dime from us. Not one single dime do they need. That's my point about the disproportionality. Let them at it. May the best man or best state win, is my opinion.
So Tim, you don't think we should support you don't think we should support our friends wherever they are?
No, unless that country has less of a, and I'm borrowing this from another Republican candidate, unless that country has a worse citizen to debt ratio or debt to citizen ratio than we do, then maybe we can go more into debt to fund them. Because remember, Leon, we do not give them one dime that does not come from debt. Okay, we are indebted to our eyeballs. We need to stop. This is This is bad. Okay. Bad. And no, we do not need to support a country that's capable of disproportionately 10,000 killing all those people. Okay.
Well, Leon, before you respond to, I just wanted to say as well that, there's an issue of not everybody is agreeing necessarily with whether or not when you say these are our friends, they're not necessarily our friends, right? I mean, we've seen that there's a huge division in the country. And so some people, a lot of people support Israel, but there's some people who don't. And it's sort of like, man, when we start supporting all this stuff, and then you see how Netanyahu's hands are dirty and all this, and, it's just sort of like, maybe we could maybe morally support or personally support these other people, but should our government, even if we weren't in debt, be handing weapons and money to all these different places?
They don't need the money. They're going up against an impoverished people living in an open air concentration camp, and they've got Poland, they've got the Abrams tanks, they got all that. What are you saying, Leon? Tim,
that is propaganda. I'm sorry, that is propaganda.
Oh, really?
You never notice, Tim. You never notice these impoverished people who cannot feed their people. Oh my God, they're so impoverished. It's so terrible. You never notice they could find the most sophisticated weaponry to attack Israel and to attack any of the enemies. Fatah and Hamas fought a bloody war, and they were not using spears and sticks and stones. They're using guns, AK-47, some of the most sophisticated weaponry. They have that there. They could find money to build all kinds of sophisticated tunnels in Gaza. Don't tell me they don't have money. Don't tell me they're impoverished. It is what they're using the money for is the issue. That is what we, taxpayers of the United States, have given money to Hamas. Well, we have given to the Palestinian Authority, and some of it end up in Hamas's hands. We have given money. What happened to that money? What are they using it for? They're not using it to feed their people. They're not using it to feed their people.
So we need to give.
But they can build all this sophisticated weaponry.
Let me give Tim a quick response, and then I want to go to Knucklehead Noise Patrol because we're going to lose Leon in a second, and I don't want to lose him before the Knucklehead Noise Patrol. So go ahead, Tim. Did you have any last response to that, or is that
no? I'm okay. I don't think so. I may have, but it's okay.
Okay. Well, clearly you can see. we can't get anybody to agree upon this in the country, or just with a small group of libertarians, liberty-minded folks. So this is a complicated issue. Okay, it's almost like the abortion of foreign policy. I guess.
Foreign aid. Potential abortion of foreign aid. Yes.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
I will make, before we move on, one concession. Tim, you do have a point about our debt, okay? I will concede that to you. But the foreign aid budget is an issue that we can talk about also. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right.
Well, now at this point, I want to move on to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. And so for this one, we kind of got a kind of interesting one. A lot of times, and I want to preface before we get to the actual thing that happened, I want to preface with a lot of times, when people will say in sports, it's sort of like, oh gosh, let your game speak for you. So the idea is, this isn't just about words, right? I mean, show us what you got. That's essentially what we're talking about here. And so there's a kind of an interesting video on this that I wanted to share just to give you a sense of what I'm talking about. And like Michael Jordan made this video, and it says, "Let your game speak." And this is just a tiny excerpt from it. But James, can you go with the first Knucklehead Noise Patrol clip? Game speak. That's essentially what he's trying to show here. Okay, well, recently, Gavin Newsom was in China, okay, and he brought his game with him to China. And so let me bring this. Actually, maybe you could show the visual, James. Can we pull up the screen real quick? So this shows Gavin Newsom decided to bring both his political and his basketball game to China. So while he was there, for some reason, he thought it would be a good idea to take on a bunch of little kids in China. And to show you what happened, let me show you video clip 2 real quick to show you Newsom's adventures in basketball in China. Oh, can you bring up video? So there's Newsom bringing his game to China and letting it speak for him. For some reason, he thought it was a great idea to hustle a bunch of little kids. Basketball.
I think the guy should get an NBA contract, man. I mean, with them kind of moves. I don't know, Jason. I don't know why you're mocking the man, man. I don't know why you're mocking the man. I mean, come on, man. That guy need an NBA contract with moves like that. My goodness, I cannot do that. Okay, I cannot.
I felt like this was very Kramer-esque, and there was a short episode. I wanted to bring in just a little clip from Seinfeld real quick, and I just felt like there was a huge parallel here where Kramer is trying to justify sparring with children in karate, and maybe you could. Bring up the third clip here, Jay.
You guys both have class at the same time?
We're in the same class.
What do you mean you're in the same class?
He almost beat me.
Kramer, you're fighting children?
We're all at the same skill level, Jerry.
He's 9 years old.
9 years old, Jerry. So, anyways, yeah, this is apparently Newsom's best game that he took with them, and that kind of shows you why his game is working so well for us here in California as well.
Maybe we should get him a nice NBA contract and pay him to leave. Okay.
Anyway, you have any thoughts, Tim, on the dominating performance?
My only thoughts is these politicians live in a warped reality. That's
I can't imagine. I mean, what would possess somebody to think that they're going to show off in front of some little? I mean, he's literally over twice as tall as.
Yeah, I think not only does he going up against kids, but they're Chinese kids, so they're a little shorter than them.
Yeah, on average, yes. On average, yes. That's right. Yes.
No.
I mean, hey,
Chinese.
Get the guy. I don't know why we're mocking the poor guy. Okay, get the guy NBA contract, pay him to leave the state, and we're gonna be in good shape, right? Yeah. Everybody comes out a winner.
Well, it's funny.
Except Leon, then he'd have to go earn a living for a change instead.
Well, you know what would be funny is if he got an NBA contract, you'd see how fast he left to go play in another city, another state where they don't charge as much tax as they do here. That's what a lot of athletes do. They'll go to a place like Florida or Nevada where their paycheck goes farther.
Or Texas,
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be right there.
Jeez.
Well, that's. I think we've about reached the end of our show, and I know Leon has to get going. So, but thanks so much again for joining us here. And like I said, you can find more of our videos on Rumble, Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook. And you can see conversations we've had there. This one will be there, and so are many others in the past. We've interviewed a lot of people who are actually doing the hard work fighting for liberty in their region and sometimes across the country. So do check those out. And before the next show, think about what you might be able to do in your neighborhood or your area to help the cause of liberty, because as we're showing, we seem to be losing it at a very fast rate here. So we definitely need you in the fight. So think about what you can do. Until the next one, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.